On a chilly spring evening below the faltering corona of the obscured sun, the three-up fort crew peered from an ancient crypt towards the tower of smoke rising above the mountains. At the base, their eponymous fort was crashing to the ground amid an uncontrolled blaze. The searing hot caves were purged of anything vaguely flammable, while the buildings outside were mostly levelled. The barn and Staves's bedroom, by the blessings of Reticott, were completely untouched, but that wasn't going to do the crew at large much good. After a few hours waiting in the crypt with what they salvaged of their food, they ventured back to assess the damage. The gentle remains of the blaze were stamped out, leaving only fizzling piles of charcoal and scorched metal. The crew gathered in the part of the main hall that still had a roof, and watched rain come down in the part that didn't. "Not even gonna give us a chance, is it?" Shah said. "All the food's gone. Couldn't freeze it anymore if we had some either," Boy reported. "Yep, and the weapons have turned into a variety of artistic masterpieces, the whole baronat," Huntsman said. "Can't we can still rebuild, right?" Lady asked, looking around at the others. "I don't think we'll survive to see that, darling," Shah said. "We can go and hide with the people in the crater, in the other cities," Staves suggested. "Don't like her chances, given the weather," Holt said. "I bet I can get me in. You guys, all you guys, well, that's just what a starving settlement don't trucking need. No offense." "What if we made ourselves useful?" "That wouldn't cover you, Wonk," Boy remarked. "We need recall a forgotten debt," Comareiro said softly. "I can brew fresh bonds if we go to a distant place. A place I would rather forget, but that now seems less sour than this heavy-hammered home." "Doubt the tribes will be willing to take us in, given how we've been getting along so far, Butter," Tumbas said. "Not the tribes, the Zappas." Now Comareiro did explain to the others what he was talking about, but in order to not spoil the surprise, I'll let you work it out once it's in action. All we need to know now is that the first step was digging through the rubble and getting anything useful they could find into a central stuff pile. All the most important stuff was gone, but a few cosmic quills and bits of old bluework kit were still salvageable. Plus the ruins of all that was beyond use could be hacked up and brought out for reuse. Soon a mound of steel, miscellaneous wood bits and precious spools of pipe was sitting under a strung-up canvas in the middle of the courtyard. The real treasure trove, though, was the barn, and that was what would get Comareiro's plan literally on the road. The stocks of animal feed were fully intact, as were the assorted bags and buckles fashioned to hang stuff off the backs of the megasheep. Putting all this together, the collected remains of the fort were packed into the bags, creating a mighty convoy of a half-dozen megasheep, as many dogs, goats, and other fluffy mammalian lump things, not forgetting the sleep-deprived, soggy, generally miserable pile of humans. "This better work, Com," Boy said as they all took a last look at the ashen fort. "I offer only a chance to escape death, without certainty. Your home here can only offer the same," Comareiro said. "Yeah, thought you'd say something like that. Alright then, let's see how the refugee life treats us. Keep those thunderbolt bows ready for anything." "We've got 2 weeks of food," Lady reported. "If we can't make it by then, we're not going to eat the animals," Staves insisted. "Let's see what 2 weeks does to that kindness, Bard," Holt said. "Are you completely sure the Zappas won't kill us?" Kerma asked Comareiro. "They won't kill me. I will implore them to spare you also." "I feel very safe," Tokka said. And they were off. The caravan departed at midnight, about 2 days after the Great Fire, heading north towards the rare-trodden dirt road to Craterton. But Craterton was not their destination. No, they were heading somewhere quite a lot further away, where Comareiro believed their salvation awaited. "It's dark out here too," Staves said. There was a long period of soggy silence before anyone else could summon the will to say anything. "We'll hit the road by morning," Holt said. "I thought we were on the road now," Lady asked, referring to the slippy lane of compacted mud they were following. No, real roads from the trucking good old days, before the fighting made them too dangerous. Not gonna be a tiny bit dangerous now, is it? Shah said. Yeah, but every other way is worse. These highways will take us north towards the deserts. Then it'll be up to the tranker. He isn't a tranker, Kerma quickly interjected. Oh, right. Whatever this is. Bloody chances, now more than ever, Boy said. The dirt path took them to a cobblestone track, some 20 miles north of Three Up Fort. It ran west towards Craterton and east towards lands untrodden, to all but Comareiro. Another day's walk brought them to what first appeared to be a head-high wall running from horizon to horizon. Stairs on the edge granted access to the top. Where the thickness of the structure became clear, the top was slightly curved, causing the constant rain to drain to either side of it. It was a real road, as we might understand it, running across the Great Plain from edge to edge and beyond. We walk until we pass through a long cave. Then the plateau will see us, Comareiro said. And keep an eye out for any highwaymen seeing us in the meantime, Tumas added. He didn't need to be so cautious, because it was in fact an ideal time for travelling in secret. You might think I'm referring to the constant darkness, but there's also the rain to consider. The climatic effect of no sunlight seemed to be manifesting in a near constant rainstorm. The only time the crew weren't being showered was when they passed through the aforementioned cave, a long tunnel that brought the road beneath a strip of mountains marking the edge of the Great Plain and the beginning of a lesser one to the north. With all that rain, who else would be so silly as to be walking the remote roads? Or maybe they were in no state to walk at all. It was about a week's trudge before the road entered more interesting terrain, with mountains blocking all sight to the west, and a slow and steady hill that rose away before fading into the omnipresent twilight to the east. The plateau, right? Boy said. Comareiro nodded. There are many zappers here. If they have lived, so may we, he said. Bit muggy here, butter, Huntsman commented. The plateau burns close to the fire, or it did. It will be hotter still. Out of the fire into the frying pan. Just need a little butter, butter. Lady laughed, no one else did, and they carried on. They left the highway for a stone road heading up to this plateau, lane with the trademark half-heartedness of Tet engineers. Eventually it flattened out in a very plateauish fashion, leaving the crew to trudge across an arid savanna, albeit one with the arid part hard to make out under the countless streams and puddles of the storm. They passed cacti, rocks, the odd rock, and even a few bushes. So far, it was not the land of plenty and general salvation that Comareiro had implied, but his plan had a few stages left to go, to be fair. The good news is that the next morning it finally stopped raining. But the rain wasn't done causing mischief, as the crew rapidly found themselves before a roaring river. There was a wooden bridge in the middle of it, meant for crossing what was usually more of a stream. The Zapper lands are here, beyond the bridge, Comareiro said. So that means this side was the tribe? Lady asked. Yes, it was. And I came here that day. I almost crossed. I will return. With this, Comareiro wandered off the road towards some shadowy rocks. Everyone else squelched through the peripheries of the river to reach the bridgehead. They then crossed about halfway before a series of alarming creaks ran up and down the structure. Wonk, make the animals wait for us to finish crossing, Boy called back. But they'll get lonely if we leave them, Staves replied. You'll be lonely when And that was when the bridge tipped over sideways. As you can imagine, a similar fate met those standing on it, and soon everyone was washing along with the river. Extremely dangerous, but it turned out the river was shallow enough to stand in even at its centre, being a relatively new geographical feature. But that didn't mean getting their entire cargo submerged was any less of a problem. Get it out, come on! Boy roared as everyone pushed and pulled beasts and their burdens to the shore. By the time about half of the stuff was in the clear, there was no collective stamina left and they all collapsed beside the water. At least they didn't have to worry about chills. The plateau was hitting 40 degrees in late afternoon, even with just a smidgen of sunlight to go around. "Why don't we just wait here for the Tets to come find us?" Tumas suggested. "'Cause I'm done sweating in the dark," Holt said. "We could dig down. It's colder in the rocks," Tokka suggested. "We can get the planks out. We could make some shade too," Staves added. "Shade? Wonk, do you even remember what the problem we have right now is?" Boy said, his eyes tightly closed and a hand on his forehead. "Got a few different problems, but we shouldn't be saving the planks for coffins, should we? That's just morbid thinking." "Too right, Stavesy," Tumas said. "You go make us a couple of sun loungers. We'll guard the food or something." "Bring the food, bring everything," Comareiro suddenly said. He reappeared from his walk with a bright yellow piece of plastic in his hand. "There is a place nearby, a place I stayed before. Ruins from before the first roll-up. We can make our new fires there, in the shadow of the rocks." "Is this it then? We're stopping?" Lady asked. "Is there any food here?" Boy also asked, before an answer came. "It all depends on the zappers," Comareiro said. "By the bits. Fine then, let's haul it all in." In this moment, a new era began. The crew dragged the gear just a few minutes from the river to where a rough metal building sat against a tall, dusty rock. It was overgrown and full of holes, stinking of the various creatures that had made it their den over the years. Now, the next batch of creatures traipsed on in. There was a table inside with a flat rock set beside it to sit on, and a long box of carved marble big enough to lie in. "This your place, Comareiro?" Shar asked. "Once," Comareiro nodded. He held up the yellow thing in his hand and flicked a switch on the side. A little flame appeared on top of it. "Ah, the discovery of fire. We're well on the way to getting the sun burning again, aren't we?" Comareiro placed the little flame against the surface of the metal table. It was speckled with the usual rust and dirt, but also with burn marks. "I didn't know anything," he said to himself. The rest of the crew shrugged this cryptic remark away, for there was a lot of work to do if they wanted to sleep in something at all resembling indoors. The aforementioned planks were brought up to complete and expand the metal shelter, as well as to create a second building against the cool surface of a large bank of rocks nearby. Comareiro stayed to clean that table, upon which he started stacking what remained of the food. Food was going to be a bit of an issue here, clearly, with a lack of sunlight being only part of the problem. The flora was sparse, leaving little for the animals to graze on, which in turn meant there weren't many chances to hunt wild creatures either. This was where the mercy of the zappers came in, and where Comareiro's apparent connection to this land was supposed to render that mercy forthcoming. After staying the night in a sweaty shack, Comareiro took a few of the megasheep on a little walk. Tumas and Huntsman went along as guards, leaving the rest of the gang trying to fashion a new blowwork windmill from the few salvaged pieces they had brought up from 3 Up Fort. While Shar and Staves squabble over the optimal amount of blades, let's follow the away team. One at a time they crossed the rickety bridge, then set off to the southeast, following the stone road. In just a few hours it reached its terminus, the tettiest town of Pumpkinwell. "Stop, now!" an eager voice shouted at the gates. The place was surrounded by a metallic fence and a moat of cactus spines, so the gate was the best bet. "Who are you? Where are you from?" the voice said. "I am Comareiro, and I am from here," Comareiro said. What? Come? You serious? No way! I am the son of Iroro, who left to seek me. He is gone now, but I have returned to settle the debt and test the strength of your name bond to me." The shadowy figure behind the chain-link gate conferred with another, even shadowier figure. "Iroro is dead? What about the rest of them?" a voice asked. "All the same, I buried him. My tribe, my other hands buried his followers. I come to ask for your aid." "Well, I guess, wait there." After waiting, a group of men with weapons and blowwork torches came out to inspect the visitors up close. An elder among them took one look at Comareiro, then cheered out, "It is you!" This lifted the mood of the other Tets at once. "Should have known you'd survive all this," someone said. "Not yet," Comareiro said with a shake of his head. They were invited into the town, where chimneys darkened the sky even more than usual, but the ground was well lit by blowwork lights covering the narrow streets. Simple square buildings repeated in a grid pattern all around them, from which spewed people, apparently thrilled to see Comareiro. Tales of his legendary exploits filled the air. "Comareiro, our secret agent," someone said. "Could clear the whole planet of tribals if he wanted," another claimed. "They picked the wrong kid, snatching you, huh?" someone laughed. "Sounds like the slick butter wasn't lying about his little rampage," Huntsman said to Tumas as they listened. "Yeah, thought he was just dreaming and all that bad and that, but did he really win a war just like that?" "I'd say it's out of the question, but these cooped up locals believe it bridge to fridge. If only they knew what he thinks about them." The three of them were treated to the local speciality, which was pumpkins, of course. The town sat upon the very edge of the plateau, beside a heavily wooded swamp and on top of a series of natural springs. Their whole game was burning the swamp wood to make blowwork and growing pumpkins in underground caverns around the springs, using very sophisticated versions of Boy's blowwork heresy bulbs. That's why they called it Pumpkin Well, and there's talk of Comareiro being some kind of hero. Well, that's why the heights were called the Comareiro Plateau. "All hail the hero of Pumpkinwell, the hero of all the plateau," the town's drunk leader cheered at dinner. Pumpkin rum goes right to the brain, they say. "Yeah, mind telling us what he did, Butter?" Tumas asked. "The man himself just said he helped you out big time back in the day. Sounds like he's killed more people than me and my buckle here." "He's no killer, he's a color," the mayor laughed. "The tribes, they took him. But they regretted it, didn't they? He killed them all." "Nice one, Butter," Huntsman said, raising a half-eaten pumpkin crescent to Comareiro opposite him. Comareiro seemed entirely unimpressed by his own legend. "I shouldn't have done it," he said quietly. "If they had lived, I could have gone home. But killing them made me into this. The man of the plateau, the hunter of kin. Here, I am not myself, as I would have it. But here they will not let us die as easily as the mass would alone." The townspeople at the table paid Comareiro's muttering no attention, which of course was part of the problem here. It was still true that their adoration of the man who had brought a slaughterous end to the local First Wave, Second Wave war was going to profit the crew now. They loaded the megaship with plenty of spare firewood, a few handy desert gadgets like air conditioners, and even gave them a rack of fishing rods. Those things would save the crew's hides in short order. Comareiro refused many offers to stay the night in the town, hurrying to get the animals back onto the road by nightfall. Nicer to walk in the cool of night anyway. Of course, he had to promise to return as often as possible and allow the locals to come visit him. After seeing the stark contrast between the affection of the locals and the stone-faced nodding of Comareiro, the Spacers had to probe a little more. "So, you don't like it when they call you a hero?" Huntsman asked. "Every time they call me this and nothing else, the life I dreamed of while tied up disappears," Comareiro said, keeping his eyes on the road ahead. "Before I was taken, I was one of them. I was simply the son of Iroro, and that is how I imagined it would be even after weeks in the caves. As the years went by, I realized that the son of Iroro I was not. Iroro, my father, could have come for me. Iroro the Zapper started his life again. But I believed he was my father until the end, until finally I could bear to live without knowing the truth no longer. I killed many to be free, many who had come to be my family in those years. I lived, then, because of those who I slew, all because I could not stop dreaming of what remained for me at my long-lost home. Finally it seemed they had not thought of me for a long time. Until then I came with a bloody tribute and became their savior. Aurora had his own family, like a fresh fire beside the last embers of the old. It was selfish of me to leave him then, but it was an awakening from a long dream into a nightmare I had created. I had nothing but that the Zappers gave me. They gave me everything, anything, but they could not be Comareiro the killer. They said that the land was mine, that my name would live on for winning their war. I won nothing. The great shame killed the me I dreamed of, and brought a final verse upon me that I had to carry on, to keep from ending, forever. It sang of everything but this, the place named in memory of who they wanted me to be. Now that I return to clean the blood from this old shadow, it is like the clouds moving aside to reveal the will of the Kote. It all makes sense now. Yep, all makes sense, Bara, Tumas said, looking to Huntsman, who shrugged.
So yeah, long story short, local loons gave us a fishing rod, he said.
Happy ending, Bara, Tumas nodded. It was no ending really. This was indeed a new beginning, possibly of the end, but at the very least it was an extension that stretched beyond the previous end, or it was a final verse they carried on to keep it from ending. Make sense? Don't worry too much about it. As Huntsman concluded, the crew's chances of survival in this strange land were improved greatly by this immediate alliance with the powers that be, gifting the Bloody Chancers one more bloody chance to rebuild and see the end of the world in a little more comfort. Can't ask for more than that, can you?